And good evening, all. Uncle Trav's campaign notes is back. And tonight, I'm not playing the role of Uncle Trav. It is Trav the Professor. Tonight's class is Superhero Psych 101. Class is in session. Of course, as you all know, publications and publishers I talk about tonight will not be compensating me. I don't do this as plugs for them. It's stuff that I like or stuff that I've used or stuff that I've owned. Also, no affiliation to TriTac Games. Wonderful people, great company. Just, I'm doing this on my own. So, as I said, tonight's class is Superhero Psych 101, or what I like to call the psychology of the metahuman, or the superhero, or the human, or whatever you want to call somebody who either has, as the line says, powers and abilities beyond those of far beyond those of mortal men, or just people who are exceedingly skilled or exceedingly good with tech. Their mentality, what it takes up here to be a superhero, and the reasons why popular ones do it. So now that I have that, I think I need to trim my beard over here. Probably time to trim it all over. Anyways, as I said, that is tonight's episode, session, class, what have you. And of course, I got the old school RPG report. Now, when I say old school, it's old school. This is stuff from the late 80s. Late 80s? Yeah. And because what I'm going to do is, with Superhero Psych 101, I'm going to break it down into heroes that are currently in the public consciousness due to the past 10, 15 years. They're both the holy trinities of the two major comic companies, DC Comics and Marvel Comics. DC's holy trinity would be Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman. Marvel's holy trinity, due to the Avengers movies and the MCU, would be Iron Man, Captain America, and Thor, the God of Thunder. So, yeah, what makes them tick, their origins, why they do what they do. Maybe even a little bit of background on who created them and whatnot. So, tonight's old school RPG report is books that explain what's in each of these comic universes. Now, remember, these probably came out each in the late 80s. So, obviously, the comics have changed since then. DC's gone through like 5 or 6 different iterations since then. Marvel had their Ultimates universe. But Marvel would be known as the 616 universe, the comic book universe we all know. So, tonight, we start off with Marvel, and this is the Saga edition, A Guide to Marvel Earth. Now, Matthew Grau, Harold Johnson, Steve Kenson, Bill Olmsdahl, and Mike Selinker. Yeah. So, this is the book about all the locations if you wanted to play the Saga role-playing game for Marvel. Now, this is the one that came with the playing cards of all the characters. Now, these are all, okay, everywhere in the Marvel Universe that is important. Like, New York City, Avengers Mansion, Wakanda, the Savage Land, Professor X's mansion, the Baxter Building, West Coast Avengers Mansion, I believe, is in there. Latveria, Doctor Doom's nation that he runs. So yeah, it explains all. It is not so much the dramatis personae of the Marvel Universe, but the places where all of the action happens. And so you're going to have all of these locations that you've known for decades. And let's see. And I love it, the back is made like a shield memo. And it's Thunderbolt's affair, which nearly put the Fantastic Four's abandoned files and equipment into the hands of criminals, risks international security and was unacceptable. I almost should be caught flat-footed again. You are hereby authorized to open a new project file, research, analyze, and compile a full listing of all specialized sites, special issue weapons depots, special research facilities, and headquarters associated with superpowered teams and individuals. Make a point including any civilian or government agencies that interact with enhanced individuals. I want full details, Mr. Blueprints, equipment, and armament lists, photo files, and security manifests. Don't limit yourself to operating facilities. Our experience shows that these individuals have a habit of appropriating and occupying abandoned sites with potentially dangerous stockpiles of equipment. Okay, yeah, and it is... Yeah, this is for the Marvel Superheroes Adventure game. As I said, this is the Saga Edition, and... trying to see a date on here. Well, it should tell you it came from TSR, so that right there should tell you this is a pretty old book. Now, the other book is its counterpart for the DC Heroes game called Atlas of the DC Universe. This one, Paul Kupperberg, edited by Jack A. Barker and Jacqueline Leaper. And let's see, not recognizing any other names, but the Adventure Architects, so yeah. And this one is the same. It's not telling when this was done, the copyright and all that. Yeah. Anyways, this is the counterpart for the DC Heroes game by Mayfair Games. Now, this could work for first or second edition. And this has Metropolis, Gotham City, Krypton, Gorilla City. Let's see, where else? Atlantis, Aquaman's Atlantis. Various things around public figures, too, of Batman and Superman. It'll have stats in here for, like, Perry White. And let's see, who else? Smallville, Quad Cities, Iowa, Pittsdale, New York City, Happy Harbor, Rhode Island, Elmont, Virginia, Coast City, California, where Green Lantern comes from. So, yeah. So, this is just the counterpart to this. Different editions, but yes. They are dealing with locations pertinent to both comic companies. Now, remember, these were in the mid to late 80s. The comic continuities have changed irrevocably. Some universes have been destroyed, and now, we have the new 52 and Premiere and this and that and the Ultimates. And so, yeah. These are the comics. That's the comic era I grew up with. Mid to late 70s into the 80s and into the early 90s. I stopped collecting regularly in around 1991. Crisis on Infinite Earths was a huge thing for me. I was just like, I got to get this all because I knew of all the various... And of course, Crisis has now been undone and redone like 6 times. Infinite Crisis, 0 Hour, all the... And yeah. So, Superhero Psych 101. The psychology of the superhero. What makes them tick? Why do they do the things they do? What caused them to be superheroes? What factors was it that put this person, whether an alien from a doomed planet, a princess from a hidden island, a billionaire orphaned by his parents being murdered, a tech genius, a test subject from the 40s, and an alien who's fashioned himself after the Norse god of thunder. What is it that has made these people be superheroes? And for better or for worse, recognized by every person on the planet. Now, we're going to start with DC. That's just because I love both of them. I love both DC and Marvel Comics. I don't do the rivalry. As I said last week, I don't do the rivalry with Star Trek and Star Wars. I don't do the rivalry with DC and Marvel. I love them both for different reasons. So I'm going to start with DC because that's just a little bit more than Marvel. While my parents were trying to destroy each other in their divorce in the late 70s into early 80s, I used DC Comics and Star Wars to hide from them screaming all the time. So, yeah, DC it was a solace for me 40 years ago. Going on 45, geez, because I'll be 55 in a couple of months. This is January 8th, 2024, so in about 2 months, 5 days, I'll be 55. So, DC's Holy Trinity. Batman, Wonder Woman, Superman. We will start off with Superman, who is pretty much known as the most famous superhero on the planet. Came out 1937, I believe, Action Comics. The iconic comic that if you find an issue of it, it sells for like $1 to $2 million, and it's Superman lifting the green car over his head while he's running. Superman, Clark Kent, Kal of the House of El. He was created by Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster, two little Jewish boys from Cleveland. Now, I believe their parents were like right off the boat, so they were second generation Jewish Americans. So they knew what it was like to be immigrants. They knew what it was like to be in a strange land with strange customs and starting a new life. Their families brought them over. They met in Cleveland. And Jerry and Joe, they came up with this character who came from a doomed planet called Krypton, and tectonic and geological forces destroyed it. And the scientist Jor-El and his wife Laura sent their only son to this planet with a yellow sun. Now, they knew that this yellow sun would give their son incredible powers. And if you've seen the recent Superman, Man of Steel, with Henry Cavill and Russell Crowe, Jor-El did know that his son would become near a god. And so he was sent to Earth, and he was adopted by a couple, Jonathan and Martha Kent, farmers in Smallville, Kansas. Martha was sterile. She could not have children. So in the fall, they found the rocket that had crashed. They took the baby in, and of course, it was a horrible winter that year. So they just said, yeah, no, it was a once in a lifetime. She got pregnant, thank God, and this is our baby boy, Clark. Clark being Martha's maiden name. Which, back in the day in the 30s, you often had a maiden name of the mother either as your first name or as a middle name. Cue the old Honeymooners skit with Ed Norton that his mother's maiden name was Lillywhite, so that it was Edward Lillywhite Norton. So, if you can find old things of the Honeymooners, get them. It was funny as hell. And I know that a lot of people are going to start bitching about Bang Zoom to the Moon. Just... Anyways, Clark was raised on Earth. He was taught... Now, the father and the mother knew that their baby had come from space. It's like, that's a rocket. Yeah, no, this was... At first, they thought it was the Russians. And it's like, no. As Clark grew and got older, he was instilled with traditional American values. Hard work, perseverance, be nice to people. And the parents also had to teach him to hide his powers. Because they didn't want their baby boy taken away by the scientists or whatever. And of course, we've seen the various iterations of Superman where things he's done, it just looks like luck. If you saw Man of Steel in 2012, Clark was about to get his ass kicked. He knew he could have wiped the floor with these kids. And you saw that fence post, metal fence post, just crimped because Clark was holding back. After Pete Ross helped him up. After Pete Ross, picked on him, but he knew about Clark's stuff, so yeah, you saw that crimp. Clark had to constantly check himself before he wrecked others. And so Superman was taught fair play. They made... Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster made the ultimate Boy Scout, the ultimate immigrant. Because Superman, truth, justice, they have recently changed Superman's motto. It used to be truth, justice, and the American way. No, because recently in the past couple of years, like during the pandemic, DC changed it for truth, justice, and a better tomorrow. Which fits, because Superman's often been called the Man of Tomorrow. But he was raised, in the 30s when Superman was made, 39. Or no, 37. Batman was 39. Superman was just raised to be honorable, decent, kind. And when he was there as Clark Kent in Metropolis, that's why Lois kept calling him Smallville. This is going to be a pastiche of various sources of these heroes. I'm going to throw in a little bit of the comic stuff and a little bit of the movies. But generally, they pretty much sync up. So yeah, Clark Kent later found out his true origins. He knew he was different. He knew it's like, okay, I have these powers. I got this stuff, Dad. What the heck's going on? There, in the comics, he was Superboy for a while. And he did go to the future. He was contacted by heroes from 1,000 years in the future called the Legion of Superheroes. So he adventured as Superboy in the future. Also, you find out, oh, there's Supergirl and the dog and the Bottle City of Kandor. So he was not the last son of Krypton. But Superman is the epitome of lawful good. He hates wrecking things. He will save innocents. If there is a villain who takes an innocent, Superman will drop that villain to make sure that hero's safe. If there is a bomb, he will wrap it up in his cape or fly it out of there and let the villain get away to save innocents. He is the ultimate in fair play. He won't sucker punch people because, like what a good man, because his mama taught him that. Cue the En Vogue song. Oh no, Salt and Pepper. I'm sorry. Okay, we're just gonna move this apple cider and Crown Royal apple whiskey over here. But Superman, yeah, he got into the concept of being a superhero because he knew he had his abilities and there were people who needed his help. And in Man of Steel, one of my favorite scenes was Neil deGrasse Tyson talking about, this guy who could, burn. He could destroy the planet. But he was raised to use these abilities to help humanity. Often with a lot of reservations. It's like, there are times humanity's just going to grind stuff on the ground. I'm out. And then he would find a reason. And it was often Lois Lane, like in BVS. So that's Superman. Now, he just will the whole thing with Clark Kent, he helped enforce the identity of him being a milquetoast, a wallflower, but just was an exceptional reporter. And he just, it's like, well, how is it you got to the other side? Well, I've got friends who fly me for free. It's not a problem. I'm not going to, Mr. White, I'm not going to sit there and, charge the Daily Planet to fly around. I have people who own airplanes. And, of course, it's him flying to the thing, changes Clark Kent, does the story, comes back, And so he did Clark Kent as just, mild-mannered reporter, Clark Kent, and so he would wear the glasses, which supposedly the lenses were from his rocket so it could withstand his heat vision because normal glasses would melt. He'd also have to do things like, I have to give a post-hypnotic suggestion to myself every night, or otherwise if I thrash around during a dream, I'll destroy. And what was the apartment number? The built 344 Clinton Street, I want to say 2B in Metropolis. Because he lived in a high-rise apartment there in Metropolis, and he would just, walk to work or whatever, or take the bus or the subway. And so Superman had to check himself constantly, but it's because his parents drilled that into him. You cannot cut loose on humanity. You have to stop them without hurting them. Because he always would... And then, of course, you had the villains who could, Lex Luthor in battle suits, Brainiac, the Parasite, of course, Doomsday, the one that killed him. Kryptonian science brought him back, but the death of Superman was one of the biggest comic book events of all time. And of course, we saw it in BVS when he was fighting Doomsday. The reanimated and changed corpse of General Zod, Michael Shannon's character. And so Superman could finally cut loose. But it takes that level of cosmic level villain for Superman to just lay him out. What was it? Superman versus the Elite or Superman versus the Ultra, where you had 4 supervillains and Superman finally got to cut loose because these guys are in it, and he just, and they're real, and I think the scene was where they're poking him, they're prodding him, and finally he cuts loose, and they realize, oh, we unleashed a tiger. Yeah, we're done. At this point, we're walking or flying dead men. It's just now, it's not a matter of if, it's when, and oh, look. So, yeah, Superman had to be held in check because his powers were just, and the more solar radiation he would absorb, and we've seen all of the various movies and TV shows and video games where he gets blasted out into space and he's like wiped. And all of a sudden, that first bit of sunlight hits him and he's back online. And like in BVS, it was after the nuclear missile hit and Doomsday fell and he's floating, and he realized that Batman and Wonder Woman were in trouble and Doomsday, and you just see him open the eyes and the eyes are red because that capacitor, that solar battery that is him, just fired up. I mean, he could sit there and bathe in the sun and just soak it in. And there was a James Gunn movie. I forget what the name, I want to say Bloodborne, where, yeah, it was Superman, but this kid was psychotic. He was not, and he, same thing, crashed in a rocket, landed in, middle of, Great Plains, America, but he was already deranged. You don't know if the voyage made him crazy or just what. But yeah, he destroyed, and it came out a few years ago. I think it was just either before or after Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1. But he did where, okay, Superman was not raised, or the lessons didn't take. So, yeah, you have this little teenage boy who can destroy everything. And you saw just how, and we've seen over the years, the various stuff that Superman could do, and they toned him down after Crisis. And they had a running joke on Justice League Doom, the DC animated movie, where it was the Legion of Doom with Vandal Savage and the Justice League. It's where Cyborg joins in. And it's the whole thing where Batman's files get leaked with all the plans to stop the League. And, okay, what are we going to do against a solar flare? And they did it. Superman goes, well, I could try moving the Earth. Batman is still looking at the screen. He says, it would take me a week for reasons, to tell you the reasons why that wouldn't work. Because they did it in the comics. I think they did it in the old Super Friends cartoon. So that was a jab at the pre-crisis DC mentality. They did, and even in the DC Heroes game, they had pre-crisis Superman and those numbers dropped for his strength and his body and his, because he was just stupid powerful. And I thank Marv Wolfman and the late great George Perez, who I've met both of them. I got New Titans 50 autographed by them at former previous Motor City Comic Cons like 30 years ago. They reined all of these heroes in that were just stupid. They codified all the universes into one. They got rid of redundancies, and and of course they've done it since. But Superman he's a god. And the Midwestern small town upbringing, and you see it in Superman and Lois, where Clark is just, okay, I'm moving back with my girlfriend my wife from Metropolis. We have our kids, and we're here on the farm. And he's trying to install these same values in Jonathan and Jordan. And I've seen some clips of Superman and Lois. It's not bad. Tyler Hoechlin is good, and sadly, this upcoming 4th season is the final one, which will be a final end of the Arrowverse. It is the last show of the CW's, and I call it the Berlanti-verse for Greg Berlanti. And it's a shame, because there were some really good scenes where Superman just cut loose. And, of course, you get Jordan with the powers now, and so he's cutting loose and realizing, wait a minute, I'm Superboy. Holy crap, So, yeah, that is Superman. He was raised to be a decent, kind-hearted person, because if not, you would have had that James Gunn movie. Now we have a boy whose life ended when he was 8. Bruce Wayne had everything. His father, Thomas, was one of the wealthiest men in the world. Wayne Enterprises was a global corporation. The Waynes were Gotham City in the 1700s, so the Wayne name was synonymous with Gotham City. And one night, as they were leaving a movie, double feature, and I think one of them was The Legend of Zorro, Thomas and Martha Wayne were killed by a criminal named Joe Chill. just some guy trying to get money. And he realized it was Thomas Wayne. Thomas was shot, Martha was shot, her pearl necklace was ripped, and Bruce was left because he didn't shoot the kid. Joe Chill apparently had some ethics. I'm not going to kill children. So Bruce Wayne, at 8 years old, his life ended. And I have, okay, if Jeff DeReff were here, I would be determined redev. Yeah. If my moderator, Jeff DeReff, was here, he'd kick ban him. I don't know how to do it right now. I don't care. It's not affecting it. Just I saw that there. Anyways, Bruce Wayne died at that moment. Yes, he was still legally called Bruce Wayne, but that little boy was gone forever. Bruce was cared for by his father's butler, Alfred Pennyworth, who I think now in the comics is dead. Well, considering he's, 40 years Bruce's senior. Bruce Wayne, after he was, he still, Alfred tutored him and everything and taught him certain things and how to survive. And we've seen the various iterations of Alfred from Sean Pertwee, Michael Goff, Michael Caine, Jeremy Irons, and Ben Affleck. I loved theirs, but we only got BVS to really, and maybe a little bit of a Justice League. But Bruce Wayne, after he turned 18, traveled the world. And he wanted to learn. He learned detective, he learned forensics, escape artist. Batman is known to know 147 different martial arts. If you want to see, check out the warehouse scene in Batman v Superman Dawn for Justice. It is considered one of the best modern fight scenes. And so Bruce Wayne went everywhere. Every part of the planet, all 7 continents, to learn something. Well, maybe not Antarctica. Okay, 6 of the 7 indigenous continents to learn everything. He forced himself to be the pinnacle of physical and human perfection. And it's basically, he was Bruce Wayne in name only. Any chance of what that little boy could have been was killed on that night in now what is now known as Crime Alley, where every year Bruce came back after he returned to Gotham and put 2 roses there on the street where his parents died. We saw Michael Keaton do that stuff in the 89 Batman. And so Bruce came back, and of course he'd seen the city had only gotten worse. His parents were running, or the people who were running his dad's company were still there. And of course, in all the iterations, like, holy crap, Bruce Wayne's back? He's been gone for, 12 years. He's 30 now. And so Bruce wanted to try to stop things, and he got himself beat up. And, he may have met Selena Kyle there. As I said, there are different iterations of what happened. But basically, he was like, yeah, the city has gotten worse. What am I going to do? And then it was that either a bat crashing through the window and landing on his father's bust, or finding the cave of bats under his mansion. There was a bat involved. And he was scared. And that, even just the one crashing through the window, I'm sorry, a bat crashes through the window, you're going to be scared. You're going to jump. Myself and my first wife were still at her parents' place, and we found a bat up in the corner, dark. It was hidden in the corner of the room because I guess the bat came in hanging on the back of my now former aunt-in-law's fur coat. And it's funny because this woman was also my high school psych teacher, Bertie Salmonek. And so me and Chris are laying there, and all of a sudden, looking, what's that darkness up in the corner? It's a bat! And of course, I ain't touching this thing. So her father comes in the fishing net, takes it out, and lets it outside. He's just looking at me like, you shit. So yeah, bats can be scary, but it gave Bruce the incentive. And the phrase was born, criminals are a cowardly, superstitious lot. Batman does everything through fear, intimidation, mind games. Batman is a master of the human psyche, especially in psychology, criminology, and just, as I said, he became, because Bruce Wayne was killed that night, Bruce Wayne is now the mask. Batman is his real identity. Bruce Wayne is what he uses to... Batman will destroy, Bruce Wayne rebuilds. Batman will sit there and blow up a warehouse to take out criminals or to stop an organization. Bruce Wayne will come in. Yeah, the Wayne Foundation will pay for this new warehouse, and the company will be bought by me, and have the place up and running again within a year. Until then, we will give severance pay to those, and that's how they work. They are two very different sides of the same coin. But Bruce Wayne realizes, I have all this money, and instead of the billionaire playboy stuff is an act. Christian Bale in Batman Begins buying the hotel, and then him and the two women in the fountain there in the front. That's how he is. He's gotten a little more responsible over the years, but he was trying to play up that just, Bruce Wayne is a goofball, and then we have the hard-ass Batman. He was doing that again. It was that dichotomy, so no one would know who was who. Clark Kent, the milquetoast, mild-mannered reporter, against Superman, a god among men. Bruce Wayne, frivolous, billionaire playboy, the Dark Knight detective. Gotham's protector. And Batman also has done something because he was an only child. He was the heir to the Wayne Empire. Alfred raised him after his parents died, but Batman has fostered like 5 or 6 different partners. You had Dick Grayson. You had Jason Todd, who is now Red Hood. You have Tim Drake. You have, I think there's a young female Robin. And now you have Damian Wayne, his blood son, with Talia al Ghul, Ra's al Ghul's daughter, who was trained from birth as an assassin. So Batman is now taking Damian under his wing to temper him, and the phrase is justice, not vengeance. And I love Damian Wayne. Oh God, I want to see this Brave and the Bold come out from James Gunn, because I want to see who they get to play Damian. He is probably the most pragmatic superhero I've ever met. In Justice League versus Teen Titans, he flies the Batjet into the Trigon augmented weather wizard, and he comes down on the parachute, and Batman walks up, and Robin's just like, what? I took care of the problem. And Batman is... And there is a scene of Batman with Dick Grayson and Jason and Tim and Damian, and he's laying there on a couch with all of them there. And it was an ad for Father's Day, and Alfred was there, and he goes, "Happy Father's Day, Master Bruce." He's like, "Thank you." And he's got his 5 sons. And all of them have had to deal with, we basically were trained as soldiers. He loves us dearly, but this is the only way he knows love, is to train the people under his charge to help him fight crime. And so Batman, he promoted by fear. You know, he was like trying to scare people. And Gotham was scared by him. Like Batman Year One and the Batman movie with Robert Pattinson, which was wonderful. He ruled through fear, and then he realized, I can be a force for good, not just trying to scare criminals, but as a symbol of hope. When you see that bat signal, you know shit's about to go down and Gotham's going to end up having a quiet night. Now, Gotham is still a hellhole. The whole point of Metropolis and Gotham, it's just the flip sides of New York. Metropolis is Manhattan. Gotham is all the dark back alleys and stuff like, the Bronx and Brooklyn and Queens and just all the places you don't want to be at night. And there are some places in New York that's like that. Manhattan, though, that is... And they did. It is two sides of the same coin. Indiscriminate cities on the East Coast, and New York is there too. And just Batman takes care of Gotham. And it's because it's basically never again on my watch. No child should ever have to lose their parents due to some random criminal looking for a few bucks. And of course, the whole thing with, Batman v Superman and Martha and all that, he realized, I'm about to kill somebody's son. And that's when he was ready to snap, and then he realized, oh shit, this alien was raised by a human. And that's when he gets, it's like, your mother's not going to die tonight. And goes off and just trashes that warehouse. I like that. I'm a friend of your son's. I kind of figured the Cape. BBS gets a lot of shit. It was a good movie. Especially get the extended edition, not the theatrical release. But here is how I do with Batman and Superman. Superman can do things Batman would never be able to do. Batman would do things Superman would never do. There is the Sandy Calora, who is a indie filmmaker, and he made Batman Dead End, which was Batman, the Joker, Alien, and Predator. Joker was played by the now late son of Walter Koenig, the original Chekhov, Andrew Koenig, who sadly a few years afterwards committed suicide, I think, up in Vancouver. And so you had, and he also did something called World's Finest, where it was a Batman-Superman team-up. Now, in both of these Batman shorts, Clark Gresham, who's like a Christian bodybuilder, I mean, he's known for his religious views, but he just ripped guy, he's huge, and he does Batman. Superman was played by Mike O'Hearn, Titan from the original American Gladiators, and so it was Lex Luthor joining up with Two-Face. And there is a scene where Clark is in the Batcave with Batman, and Batman's got the cowl down, and he's there typing away on the Bat computer. And Superman is just there and goes, "You're going to break into the White House. Just a few more locks, just a few more doors." That right there epitomizes Batman and Superman and their dynamic. Because Superman would never think of breaking into the White House. To him, that is the pinnacle of the American, governmental system. And Batman's like, "Yeah, no, I'm in. I'll be in 3 seconds, yeah." And that is it. Superman can lift a train. But Batman is the ultimate pinnacle of physical and mental perfection. Granted, he spends a lot of his time beating up insane people and throwing them back into a mental asylum with very shitty security, because these criminals who are street level criminals at best, Joker, Penguin, Riddler, they keep getting back out one way or another. And Batman will not kill. He will not use a gun. That was one of the things a lot of people had with Ben Affleck's Batman in that scene. He grabbed that guy's arm and he just started firing. Now, in the context of that, Ben Affleck's Batman was somebody probably with shit tons of PTSD and had been, he said, it's like, "Yeah, we've been doing this for 20 years, Alfred. Nothing's changed. Gotham is still a cesspool." Or like, what was it, Arthur Curry, Jason Momoa. "Gotham, oh, that shithole." Yeah. And so Batman he had to start employing the methods. He had to start getting nastier and nastier. He wasn't to the level of Dark Knight, Kevin Conroy doing the Dark Knight in Crisis on Infinite Earths with Batwoman. But Batman would never use a gun. He would never actively kill. Now, people would fall off bridges and people would, get hit by cars. But he would never actively, quote-unquote, pull the trigger. Because he lost his parents. That was the defining moment in his life. If his parents had lived, he'd be a petulant playboy and he'd be, "Oh, I'm a trust fund baby." I mean, he still is, but his purpose came from losing the two people he loved the most in a random act of violence. And the funny thing was, Joe Chill found all the major villains in Gotham City. And I mean, we're talking the Joker, the Riddler, Penguin, Two-Face, Clayface, Catwoman, Poison Ivy, all of them. Every Batman, and they were there. And this guy, Joe Chill, comes and goes, yeah. Here's the thing. I have a secret that, all of you should know. I know who Batman is. Wait, what? Whoa, everybody, settle down. Whoa. Okay, how do you know this? I killed his parents in Crime Alley. And every one of those villains turned and said, "You did what? You're the reason why you're Batman." They killed Joe Chill right on the damn spot. They ended him. He was done. Again, it's like, it wasn't a matter if, it was when, and it was within seconds he was dead. Because it's like, our lives suck. We're constantly being plagued by this, cape-wearing jackass because you went and killed his parents 40 years ago. So yeah, yeah. So that's those two. And now we have the Queen of DC superheroes, the Amazon Princess, the ambassador to Themyscira Paradise Island, Princess Diana, a.k.a. Diana Prince, a.k.a. Wonder Woman. Oh, God. And I'm trying to remember the name of... And I'm going to look it up now here real quick. William Hurston Here we go. William Moulton Marston, an American psychologist. Apparently also created the lie detector? What? Charles Moulton was his pen name. He and his wife, Elizabeth Holloway, invented an early prototype of the polygraph. He was also known as a self-help author and the comic book writer who created the character Wonder Woman. And some other things. Wait a minute. Yeah. Little note about William Moulton Marston. He was polyamorous. His wife, Elizabeth, and Olive Byrne, a former student who became an academic. So you had also about maybe 5-6 years. It was shortly after Wonder Woman came out, and there was a movie, Professor Marston and the Wonder Women, 2017. And of course, the son or the grandson. Oh no, my grandpa. No, there was no such thing. No, no, no. And yeah, whatever. No, it's public knowledge. You're the guy who created Wonder Woman, and the whole bracelets and the lasso tie. You know what was going on, folks. You don't need to do the math. You know exactly what was going on between the Marstons and Olive. Safe, sane, and consensual, folks. If you're going to be in polyamory and you're going to be doing that stuff, consent is not only sexy, it's required. It's mandatory. No means no. So yeah, you have this woman who was created from clay and imbued with life by Zeus, kind of like the old story Galatea, who, sort of a, oh God. And I'm blanking on the name. Elsa Doolittle? Yeah. My Fair Lady. Rex Harrison. Yes. So yeah, Wonder Woman, drawn heavily by Greek mythology, had her bracelets that could, deflect bullets and projectiles, the lasso of Hestia, which compelled anybody wrapped up in it to tell the truth. She could fly, she had super strength, she was a classic warrior. And of course, they had the thing back in the day, and they later got rid of it. Oh, if my wrists are bound by a man, I'm powerless. We all know where that came from. Just let's do the math, folks. It doesn't take a genius to figure out what they threw that in. They later got rid of it. The apple cider and the Crown Royal apple, I couldn't stay away. I'm sorry. No, I'm not sorry. I regret nothing. So Diana was found by Steve Trevor when he crashed on the Ellen. He was an U.S. Army Air Force pilot during World War II. And pretty much from what I understand, the origin story in the Wonder Woman movie with Gal Gadot and Chris Pine was pretty close. And so Wonder Woman went back with Steve to be an ambassador to man's world. Wonder Woman was trying to... Her thing is, I'm trying to show that we can all live in peace. That the heart is what makes us human. And it was key. And Gal Gadot did a fantastic job as Wonder Woman. I'm an old school Linda Carter fan, but that was a lot of American hype, and they threw out the Greek stuff to... And no, Gal Gadot nailed that part. I'm going to miss her in the part. I believe her final appearance in the part was Shazam! Fury of the Gods, which I haven't seen all of. But Diana Prince... Princess Diana of Themyscira, was the ambassador of Themyscira to the outside world. And so she is helping man, again, to help them be better. Showing them that if you keep your heart as the forefront of your goal, in other words, have empathy for your other fellow man. And so she... obviously Steve had to teach her, okay, this is this is the... And this was back in the 40s when all this... When this was there, because the 2017 Wonder Woman Gal Gadot movie was during World War I. No, it was actually 1914. And so... But still, the world was at war, and they needed Wonder Woman to show them, okay, you know what, quit fighting. You all are, you're all on the same planet here. Just simmer down now. And she can, in the movies, you know, in the old, now the former DCEU, she could never go back to Themyscira because she left the island. But with everything that her mother Hippolyta and, you know, her father being technically Zeus, so she's a demigod. She is a daughter of Zeus because of his power animated the statue. Yeah, that's her dad. She is a demigoddess. And so, as I said, her thing is to help humanity be better by being empathic, being kind, being loving to each other. And there is a wonderful scene in a recent comic book. And again, it was one of DC's universe reboots. And you had Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman all holding her lasso. Okay, we're friends, we work together, what are our names? And she goes, Diana of Themyscira, Clark Kent, Kal-El, Superman, and just Batman. No Bruce Wayne, just Batman. That right there proves to you that Bruce Wayne is the mask. Batman is who he was since age 8. And it's just, these three have been called the Holy Trinity for decades now. Because you have basically two gods and the pinnacle of human physical and mental perfection. Superman, he's akin to a god. He's an alien who was raised American. You have a demigoddess with, and we don't know how long she'd been on Themyscira. She may have been there. Well, if it was during Zeus, that was at least 1,000 years ago. So Diana's maybe 1,000 to 1,500 years old. And then you have a man who lost he lost everything and has been through the bad side of hell. He put himself through the bad side of hell so no one else would have to. And there's a meme about those who smile the brightest have the most darkness. And it's a meme, you'll see it on Facebook. It's of Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman. The problems that they have. Like Superman is the most lonely because he's not human. He lives among humans. He can never go home. This is his adopted homeworld. But he knows in the end he will never be human. And just the three of them together are called the Holy Trinity because they have that three-way bond of an alien, a demigod, and this very broken man who is using his resources to help humanity. And here's the thing about Batman. This man is on par with gods. Batman is considered a master tactician. Batman is going up against the Flash and Aquaman and Superman and Wonder Woman and Cyborg and Green Lantern and Martian Manhunter. And because he made those plans to mollify them in case they were mind controlled or they just snapped, that was the whole point of Justice League Doom, the movie that came out a few years ago from DC Animation. And just, he was a master tactician. He knew and they were all pissed off. And they had every right to be. Problem is like, okay, what if you guys do go rogue? Who's going to stop you? The nation's militaries? No. Nation's militaries, you would all shrug off. You laugh at them. There has to be a check and balance. Hi, I'm Batman. I would be that. Hi, I'm Batman. That would be the check and balance. And then at the end, Batman was leaving, and Superman handed him the small lead box of kryptonite. And he says, in case I do go rogue, you're the person I trust to stop me. Oh, by the way, what were your plans if you decided to go rogue? What was your contingency plan? It's called the Justice League. And teleports away from the Watchtower. And just, yeah, it's... Batman is just that master tactician, and he can go toe-to-toe with gods. And they respect him. And there's just times where his dad look is on point. I'm jealous of Batman's dad look. He gets... I mean, in Batman Superman Apocalypse, he bet his life and basically set off 500, he had 500 hell spores ready to blow up Apocalypse. And he's going on this bet with Darkseid, and he was voiced by the guy who played the captain in Brooklyn Nine-Nine. We lost him a couple of weeks ago, Andre Braugher from Homicide: Life on the Street on NBC years ago. And so you have that character, and Batman's, and even Darkseid said, the Amazon and the Kryptonian would never make such a bet. You humans kill each other for sport. You're the only one who basically had the balls to do this for Darkseid. And it's like, you release Kara Zor-El from your influence, and I'll defuse the bombs. If not, we all die. And he was not bluffing. Batman, you don't want to call his bluff, because he will, yeah. And that was how Batman is. He can go toe-to-toe with gods because of his tactical acumen. And there's the old meme. Okay, if Batman and Kevin McAllister from Home Alone were in a fight, who would win? And it says, depends on if they both have prep time. Batman is the ultimate flexible fighter. He'll pick up anything and use it. He has all his gadgets and everything, and even then he'll use them in weird and unusual ways. Because he's that good. He trained from the best on the planet. The best detectives, escape artists, martial artists, tacticians, and just, the man probably has all 3 copies of The Art of War, the translation, Cleary, Gates, and I think there's one other. I prefer Cleary myself. That was the one that made the most sense to me. Things like an army only travels on its stomach, or always travels on its stomach. Which means if you feed an army properly, they'll march into hell for you. I mean, The Art of War, the book that Tony Soprano used to run his criminal empire. And it always worked. Sun Tzu's The Art of War is required reading at West Point, our Army Military Academy. It's a 2,000-year-old Chinese text that still stands true today. And Batman probably has that read, back. He could recite whole pages, just because he's that good of a tactician. So that is DC's Holy Trinity. And we are already at about 7 to 9. So yeah, I could go with the other 3. Sure, yeah. Marvel's Holy Trinity. Now, it may have not have been what in Marvel Comics it was, but due to 2012's The Avengers, directed by Joss Whedon with Robert Downey Jr. and Gwyneth Paltrow and Mark Ruffalo taking over Edward Norton's role, and Chris Hemsworth and Chris Evans and Jeremy Renner and Scarlett Johansson and Clark Gregg and the baddest motherfucker in movies, Samuel L. Jackson. Motherfucker. We got Marvel's Holy Trinity, which is Iron Man, Captain America, Thor. So we will start with Anthony Stark. Now, in the comics, I found out he was actually adopted by Howard and Maria Stark. In the MCU, it's like, no, it's their natural-born only son. Howard Stark was a tech genius, and he was the type of guy who was working all the time, and he was wealthy, so Tony was raised by partially his mom and nannies and whatnot. You saw the Civil War part with the barf headset thing, where Tony was replaying the last time he saw his parents before the Winter Soldier, while in Winter Soldier mode, killed them. Yeah, Tony Stark was another man. He had everything. His parents were alive of their own. They later died at the hands of the mind-controlled Winter Soldier. And so he just took over his father's tech empire, and it was mostly weapons manufacturing, and he'd be selling, Stark weapons everybody. And I love that whole thing where in Age of Ultron, arms dealers, all these things, all this, and they're doing this, and Captain America just looks like, okay, you go to these things every so often. Okay, just settle down. Don't judge me. So Tony Stark, he was, again, the billionaire playboy, and he had tech. I mean, he was that good. Tony Stark is one of those people where he's allowed to have ego. Kind of like, just saying. Anyways, when you're that good, you can have ego. Problem is, Tony he was playing the billionaire. He was the billionaire playboy. He had billions of dollars from his father's empire, and he kept building more. And he goes to a weapons test and gets caught by, the Ten Rings organization. which they've since cleaned up with Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. And he got injured and thrown in a cave, and the people there in the Middle East. And originally it was Vietnam, because you got to remember the time Iron Man came out. He came out in the 60s. The character is now 60 some odd years old. And here's the thing, with the movie Iron Man, it was a gamble. He was not an A-list character. Oh, Spider-Man, Captain America, the Hulk, the Fantastic Four. Iron Man was a little more... And so Jon Favreau and Robert Downey Jr. took a massive risk, and thankfully it paid off. Because now, yeah, I mean, Robert Downey Jr. has won a Golden Globe for Best Supporting Actor for Oppenheimer, but he's always going to be known as Iron Man. And people around the world love him for it, and, this kid has a prosthetic arm, it looks like an Iron Man arm, and all this, and he's done the appearances dressed as Tony Stark. So yeah, Tony Stark got captured by Middle Eastern terrorists. And you had the other guy with him, Yoisin. And they wanted Tony to make a weapon. Meanwhile, he got the metal in his heart, and he had the arc reactor keeping it away. So he's there working, trying to barely keep from dying. And he decided, I'll give him a weapon, but I'm going to use it on them. And made that Mark I Iron Man suit, the big hulking power armor that got him out of there barely. And so Tony now realized that technology what was keeping him alive. But he also realized that my weapons are being used to kill innocents. And before, he didn't care. He was just like, yeah, fuck it, just give me my money. No, he realized that women and children and innocents were being killed by the stuff he was making and had made for decades. So that's when you see the Iron Man, and of course you had Obadiah Stane, Jeff Bridges, saying, no, we got to keep building. And I love the thing. This man built power armor in a cave from a box of scraps, So Tony decided to use, okay, I'm at home, I'm recovering, I got Jarvis, I'm going to update this armor. That was just a bare bones thing, it barely got me out of that cave, I still crashed and it hurt. I'm going to start building better and better ones. And it became a hobby where you had like the Mark 50 or some shit like that. So you had him just building new and new. And in the comics, they were everything. Oh, this is the underwater. This is the space. This is this. And you saw them all in Iron Man 3, when Jarvis brought all of the armors. The whole thing. Him and Rhodey. Are those? Yeah. Is this? Yeah. Merry Christmas, buddy. All right, Jarvis. Gentlemen, let's do this. Let's take him to church. That whole scene where just all the Iron Man armors, yeah. He kept improving and so Iron Man became Iron Man, at least as far as the MCU goes, because he realized he had a responsibility. His tech was killing people, so he got out of weapons design and got into other things. But he made his money from weaponry, and again, that was that scene in the Avengers, when Iron Man's bitching and just Nick turns and says, remind us again, Stark, how your father made his money? Yeah. And even then, yeah, he still had that arc reactor not only powering his heart, so it was kind of like a pacemaker, but also it was, keeping the heart sliver from going in and piercing his heart and killing him. But that arc reactor became just a whole new source of energy, and he was doing all this stuff, and he had, his holography lab and all that. Iron Man 2. I love the deleted scene of him finding the new element. I wish Favreau would have kept that in. That was far better than the one that we saw. But yeah, the thing about Iron Man is that in the comics, Tony Stark was a raging alcoholic. We all know how Robert Downey Jr., he and his father smoked pot back when he was like 14. And so we all know, Robert Downey Jr.'s addiction problems are now public record and legend. And with Iron Man, he turned himself around. He met, Downey met his wife Susan. They now have a production company. They have a couple kids of their own. Robert has a previous son from previous marriage, Indio, and that was bad. I found, Indio Downey, son of Robert Downey Jr., was arrested on drug possession today. And you know that once Downey bailed his son out, Gibbs smacked him. What the fuck are you doing? What, you thought that you could do it better than me? Get your ass over here. So, art imitated life with that. It was inspired casting. Again, okay, there are a lot of people that we say we should wrap in bubble wrap and, preserve them forever and make sure nothing. Sarah Finn. the casting director for the MCU. Do not lose her. She's been in the high 90%. I mean, we've had to replace a few people. Sadly, recently Jonathan Majors, who played Kang, and Victor Timely, and He Who Remains, but no, Seraphin, that was inspired casting, Robert Downey Jr., because he was the drunken playboy, and I have money, and I'm partying, and then something happens where he has to get his act together. And there are times Tony would fall back into alcoholism in the comics, and then just snap out of it, just realize, okay, I'm done drinking, fuck this, we're building yet another Iron Man armor, or I'm going to build this device, or I'm going to build this vehicle, or whatever, because it needs to be done. Sober up Jarvis, and in the comics, Jarvis is an actual butler, Edwin Jarvis. It's like, give me a couple cups of coffee and, that electrolyte stuff that I made, and we got to get going on this. He would get addicted and just burn it. It'd be gone. The addiction would be gone, and he'd get right back into it. So Iron Man did it out of, guilt. His inventions killed people, and he inadvertently caused the Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver in Age of Ultron, because there was a Stark bomb sitting there, and Wanda and Pietro Maximoff were hiding under the rubble of their building for 4 days looking at a Stark bomb. If they moved, it would be set off. So Tony, he perpetuated a lot of stuff through his, you could say, lack of empathy, not realizing that his weapons were killing innocents. He just wanted the money. And just, he made Ultron to try to end that, messed up. And just went off into space instead of defending Earth, and that's why they lost in Infinity War, and they even admit it, because Cap and Iron Man weren't together. But Tony Stark, until the moment he died in Endgame, spoilers, it's like a 6-year-old movie, or no, 5-year-old movie now. It was 2018, 2019, Infinity War and Endgame. Until he died in MCU date 2024, which was, I think maybe a couple months ago, it's like, oh, this is the date that Tony Stark died in the MCU in real life. And so, Tony tried to, he turned around and made his inventions to better humanity. He got out of the weapons tech business and just made other things, computers and, and so, that Tony Stark, that's his thing. He did it out of guilt. He made the suit as an attempt to escape, and then he realized, wait a minute, I could do this. And he said those 4 famous words at the end of Iron Man 1 and at the end of Endgame. I am Iron Man. Because they were synonymous. And then, of course, the whole scene in Iron Man 2 where they're there at the Capitol, and the late, great Gary Shandling is there as Senator Stern. And just that whole exchange is like, Mr. Stark, yes, dear. That whole thing was funny as hell. And so you have him just, he could still put on and he'd go and he's racing cars and shit, and poor hapless Pepper Potts is like, what are you doing? Give me the case! Yeah. But Iron Man did it out of guilt. He realized at first, it's still part, being, I get to fly around in my own suit and fight crime, and and there are other times like, no, I'm doing this for a purpose. So he's still a little bit more of the flamboyant playboy, but he's not as driven as Batman. And there are memes where, Superman meets Captain America. Superman, Captain, Stark, Batsy. So it's just Anthony Stark, he's driven. Not to the point of mania like Batman is, but he's driven to help people. And remember, like I said, he's all about style. Just come in, AC/DC blaring and just, blasted Loki on his ass and let Mr. Stark, Captain. There are just so many inspired moments, from do you know what it is here? Shakespeare in the Park. Does mother know you are wearing her drapes? That whole in the Black Forest, him and Thor fighting each other. But no, Tony, he still had fun, but there was still a sense of duty. He realized, he turned his life around. He settled down. He married Pepper. He had Morgan, their daughter. And there was a deleted scene where the Soul Stone, Morgan meets Tony. a grown-up Morgan played by some other actress meets Tony, and I think it was in the Soul Stone. So, and of course they've been saying, oh, they got to bring him back for Secret Wars and all that. He did his job. He helped create the MCU. Leave Downey alone. He's now, Golden Globe winner for Oppenheimer. And just leave the man be. He did his time. Rever him as who helped create the MCU and move on telling better stories. So yeah, Anthony L. Stark, yeah. And it's so funny. You have Sherlock Holmes, described by Watson, was a man of iron. Tony Stark, Iron Man, both played by Robert Downey Jr. Mind equals blown. And no, Conan Doyle did write that Watson wrote, yes, Holmes was a man of iron. Because of his implacable attitude, nothing ever fazed him just yet. So there is Anthony Stark, a.k.a. Iron Man. Now we have Captain America, Steve Rogers, born on the 4th of July back in like 1918 or something. And he was an incredibly scrawny man. He wanted to be a patriot. He saw that, there were things he wanted to do for his country. He wanted to support the war effort. Problem is, he was a $1.05 soaking wet. And Professor Erskine, played by Stanley Tucci in the MCU, this man has incredible range. Yeah, if you want to see his comedic chops, watch Undercover Blues with Dennis Quaid and Kathleen Turner, where he played Muerte. And I love at the end, yes, I'm looking for Muerte. Hi, I'm Morty. How you doing? Yeah. But Stanley Tucci is Professor Erskine. Realized that Steve was a good man. He was one of the best people ever known. He was noble. He was kind. He wanted to help people, but just his physical frailty. And he was just scrawny. It's not like he was sick or anything. He was just scrawny. And he told him that, yes, my super soldier formula, if I can get you, it will help you become better. And so, of course, Steve went through the whole... Yeah, he went through boot camp, and Tommy Lee Jones was there, and Steve was willing to jump on a grade for his friends, and that's when Erskine said, no, I want him for my experiment. And, of course, through chemicals and radiation, he became manly. Yeah. So we had Captain America, and he was first used as propaganda, punching the Hitler guy on stage, and then they realized, no, if we train him in combat, and he can lift like 1,000 pounds. They took the ultimates. Because Captain America, again, no, maximum human potential, so like 800 pounds. No. Captain America threw a motorcycle over his head at Hydra agents. No. They took the ultimates, Captain America, who, about half a ton. So he was beyond physical capacity. It's just his patriotism, his ethics, his morals. And it was even said that the super soldier serum exemplified who you were. Now, Red Skull took it, and look what happened to him. I don't know if the Red Skull, that was him, or that was part of the super soldier, or whatever. But if you were an evil person, it would make you more evil. If you were a good person, you would become more noble. And Steve Rogers is that. He did his purely out of patriotism. Not forced patriotism. He was, I want to help the war effort. The Nazis are a threat. I want to be there and fight for my country. It was simple patriotism. And he ended up becoming iconic. And then he was lost in 1940s. And the super soldier serum also, yeah, he should have died in that Arctic water. The super soldier serum, basically the cold ended up preserving him, and he was coming back 70 years later. So he was a man out of time. He was 70 years behind on everything. And so Steve spent his time adjusting. And in the comics, he was an artist. They didn't really exemplify that in the MCU. Steve was supposed to, and I think they did, because there was like the scene with the waitress that they took out of that Joss Whedon took out of the first Avengers. There was a lot of asshole things Joss Whedon has done. He's pretty much persona non grata in Hollywood now. But, and that shit all came out during Justice League, after he took over, after they fired Zack Snyder. But you had Steve Rogers there, and he just wanted to help people. He was kind, he was generous, he again was raised in that American, be kind to your neighbor type of lifestyle, even though he was, from Brooklyn. He didn't have the small town values of Clark Kent, but he still had that early 20th century, the greatest generation mentality. Because, yeah, Steve Rogers now was like 90 something. He went back through time and went through Peggy and lost her, and technically kind of changed the past, but he got his happy ending. He got his 40 years or whatever with Peggy. And so, yeah, Steve Rogers did it out of a simple sense of patriotism. But we also found out that, the whole lines about when they're there arguing in the lab aboard the helicarrier. And it's like, you're not about the sacrifice play. You're all about style and flash. Bullshit. Everything, Rogers, that came from you good came out of a bottle. And then we found out, no. Tony made the sacrifice play. Steve had it in him all along. He picked up Mjolnir. He was that pure of heart to do that. And if you saw Endgame in that scene, if you did not go nuts in that theater wherever you saw Endgame, you have no soul. That was a defining moment. Because it's like, yeah, one, it proved Tony wrong. And then later Steve was proved wrong. But it showed that Steve was that pure of heart where he wielded it wonderfully. Because remember, once Steve got enhanced, the U.S. Army dumped all their training at tactical, strategic, martial arts. My one thing about Captain America is that he tried to choke everybody. He's trying to choke robots. He's trying to... And there's a meme where it's like 4 different times where Steve is choking something that doesn't need to breathe. And I'm like, son of a bitch, that's right. I understand that's probably the fighting style he did, but he's trying to do it against a robot. At the most, you're restraining him. You're not killing him. You're not harming him. You're not, detaining him in any way by, trying to crush, his trachea to keep him from breathing. No. And so, but Captain America, once he was Captain America, he became the symbol of what America should be. And there was something in The Winter Soldier in the beginning when he first met Sam Wilson, Anthony Mackie's character. Anthony Mackie's funny as hell. Oh my God. Him and Sebastian Stan on press dockets and all that. Oh God, those two are a riot. Sadly, they're not going to be in movies together anymore as far as I know, because Bucky's going to be in the Thunderbolts and Captain America New World Order or Brave New World. Yeah. Falcon and Winter Soldier is probably the last time we'll see those two in movies for quite some time together in the same MCU movie. But you had Captain America there, and you had, Steve was asking Sam, and he brought up the Trouble Man soundtrack from Marvin Gaye. And it was a soundtrack to a movie from the 70s, Trouble Man. It's a wonderful soundtrack. I ended up listening to it. It's one of those soundtracks, if you're in a blue funk and you got a few drinks, and you'll start crying. But it's Marvin Gaye. It's that good. There is a reason why when I say hit the button, it's Marvin Gaye's Let's Get It. It's because it's Marvin Gaye. Anyways, you saw the book that Steve was writing down. And it said Star Wars, Star Trek, the Internet. And it's like, Trouble Man by Marvin Gaye. I'll write that down. They did something. They reshot that scene for the majority of the countries that the movie was shown in. So for Brazil, it was all Brazilian shit. For Britain, it was all British stuff. For, let's say Germany, it was all... And they had to do that over and over and over again for every country they showed. But they put that in there because, yeah, he was Captain America, but still he was a world-known hero. To make the rest of the world feel like, yeah, he was, made in America at Camp Lehigh in New Jersey. But he was a hero of all people. And he was trying to enforce and bring out the good ideals of America. What it was meant to be, not kind of what it is today, sadly. So, yeah, Captain America was an ideal. He started out as somebody who just wanted to help with the war effort. He was turned into an icon for America and ended up becoming more. And he ended up becoming one of the greatest forces of good in the MCU. He got his just reward. He got his time with Peggy, and I think when Brave New World comes out, there will be a gravestone. Steve will have finally passed away from old age. And it's just, yeah, it's time to hand over the mantle fully to Anthony Mackie with the Wakandan super suit with the wings. And just, oh no. That whole final episode with Mackie. And as he shoots it, he got knocked in the East River, flies out. Boy, you just earned yourself that ass whooping. I laughed out loud. But Sam Wilson is now Captain America because he's carrying on the mantle of Steve Rogers. Some pretty big shoes to fill, but it's Steve Rogers. It's Captain America. And just when you have someone that prominent in the American spotlight and he's trying to set the example, he was considered the leader of the Avengers, even though Tony, and it's like looking to, Maria Hill. Yeah, boss. I'm not the boss. I just payroll everything, make all the cool stuff, make you guys all look good. That's all I do. Just because Steve and Tony co-led. Steve was the moral, ethical center. Tony was the checkbook. Just they co-led the Avengers, and then you saw in Endgame, Tony commanded all the air forces. Cap commanded everybody on the ground. That's why those two were like this. They had to be, and then Tony went out in space, and that's why they lost the Thanos Infinity Game, because they weren't together. And it's like, I lost the boy, and Steve looked at Tony there after the Milano or the Benatar came back down. We both lost Tony. Because they needed each other. And they were such disparate origins. Steve was just some normal kid from Brooklyn. Tony, fucking silver spoon in his mouth. So yeah, Steve was the moral center of the 6 original Avengers. He was the guy that knew, okay, we need to do this, we shouldn't do that. And he knew that the Sokovia Accords were wrong. And unfortunately, that whole thing in Civil War broke up the Avengers until Infinity War came out. And no, Steve, and even Steve and the next guy I'm going to talk about were good friends. Because Thor, Odin's son, the god of thunder, he knew Steve had the potential. You saw that look when Steve moved that hammer a little. And Thor's sitting there with that bottle of beer there in Avengers Tower, and all of a sudden he just goes. The eyes get real wide, and you hear the... Fan theory is that Steve didn't want to lift the hammer. He didn't want to prove Thor wrong. He knew he could lift the hammer. He, a little bit just to put Thor on notice, to confirm Thor's suspicions. Now, Thor Odinson, the Norse god of thunder. Now, in the MCU, the Marvel Comic and Cinematic Universe, it's revealed that, no, these are aliens who, they were the ones who humans revered. Most of the gods, except for, at least the Greek and Norse gods, are sufficiently advanced technologically advanced aliens. And then humanity started worship. Now, since then, we have found, okay, the Egyptian gods are actually deific beings. Watch Moon Knight. So, Thor, Odin's son. Spoiled brat. Birth son of Odin. Younger brother of Hela. Adopted brother of Loki. Laufeyson. Laufey is the name of the storm giant that Odin took Loki in, and from a very early age, Loki learned to, okay, I'm going to look Asgardian, because he's a master of illusion. He was the god of mischief. In What If, Tom Hiddleston was back as the voice of Loki in that first season, and he was the blue frost giant. It was the What If Thor was an only child. And so Thor, being, yeah, he could fight, he protected Asgard, but he was still cocky and, yeah, how you doing? Yeah, I'm Thor. Yes, thank you. He wasn't as bad as he was in the What If, but he was raw talent. He was not tempered steel. And because he got cocky, Sir Anthony Hopkins as Odin shunted him to Earth, took away his power. Thor lands on Earth, realizing he's just a very knowledgeable but mortal. And of course, you saw the fight where Coulson's there, tells Barton, take the shot. You better tell me to take the shot. I'm starting to root for him. Because Thor was there throwing people around. He was still abnormally strong, but he was still immortal. He had 1,500 years of combat experience. And he was a god. Unlike Wonder Woman, who was a demigoddess, yeah, her mother was Hippolyta, and the clay was infused by Zeus's power, his spirit. Thor was actually, an alien, but venerated as a deity. All of his powers were due, it's the Arthur C. Clarke phrase. Any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. And they explain that in Thor the Dark World. It's like, no, for you call this magic, for us it's science. As Jane Foster is there watching them extract the Aether from her in the second Thor movie. Thor had to be humbled. He was cocky, he was arrogant. He thought, yeah, I'm going to rule and just everybody will be nice. No. Odin was trying to instill upon Thor with the forced exile of a king can't be considering himself above his subjects. He has to have empathy for them. He can't just rule, sit in his ivory tower and like, yes, I am your king, yes. No, he has to realize the motivations of his people so he knows how to best serve them. And so Thor Odinson got exiled to Earth, where Darcy Lewis, Eric Selvig, and Jane Foster found him. And of course, Eric Selvig, being Norwegian, and Stellan Skarsgård. We know, I love it that those two are out drinking. He just throws Selvig on the table. He's a mighty warrior. He drinks well, but I had to carry him home. And so Thor had to go through that humbling process. He had to go, and of course Mjolnir was there stuck in the rock, and the shield agents had it all under tarps and everything, and the clean rooms and all this crap, and it took, as Odin fell asleep and Loki was taking over, and Loki sent the destroyer to that small town in Arizona, it took Thor willingly sacrificing himself to save his friends. And that's when you see Anthony Hopkins there in the sleep chamber, and that tear rolled down his eye because he knew his son died. And that's when, okay, he's learned his lesson. Mjolnir, get over him. And you just saw it rocket up into the sky, and as, Jane's grieving for Thor, all of a sudden, Selvig sees that coming. He goes like, oh, no, Jane? And she, of course, she's... And you've seen the scene where all of a sudden just the hand, and just he's back. And even Loki and the Destroyer go, the fuck's going on here? And everybody else, you got the Warriors 3, you got Sif, you got Darcy, you got Eric and Jane. Oh, my God. And you're seeing the scale coming back up his arms, and he's just there, and he hit. And the whole scene's beautiful. And, of course, he just walks out of the tornado as it dissipates. Yeah, I'm back. Yeah. You're all welcome. Yes. Yeah, I learned my lesson. I messed up. Dad, I'm sorry. Yeah. And so Thor had to be knocked down a few pegs. And it took him being a human on Midgard to realize how to rule. If you're going to be ruling Asgard in my stead, you have to know your subjects, as it were, your charges, which are the people of Midgard. And you saw the whole argument with Thor and Loki there on the mountain in Avengers before, where it's like, no, you don't understand, Loki. You don't rule over them. You rule with them. You know their motivation. And it's like, let me tell you, and that's when Iron Man hits him. I just love Tom Hiddleston. I'm listening. And then the whole thing, does Mother know you're wearing your drapes? That whole fight, and just, yeah. Drop the hammer. Yeah, no, he likes that hammer. Yeah. And so, yeah, and it's funny because the dynamic between... Because I've already talked about the dynamic between Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman. For Captain America and Iron Man, you have a god, an enhanced individual from World War II technology, and a tech genius with his own suit. Steve is definitely... And this is one of the things I loved about the Avengers. What Whedon did. Again, Whedon's a dick. I hope he dies penniless and destitute for everything he's done. His ex-wife said he was an asshole back when Age of Ultron came out. Nobody believed him. It was on the set of Justice League after he took over. He was given Zack Snyder's job, and all the reshoots were done, where Ray Fisher, the man who played Cyborg, and now because of how Warner Brothers treat him, will probably never be in Hollywood again. He'll probably go back. He's probably back on Broadway, and he'll never get in front of a camera again. But it took Ray Fisher, as again the guy who played Victor Stone in Justice League, and he was going to play him in The Flash too, but because Ray was a whistleblower, they wrote him out of the Flash movie. They couldn't fire him. They just wrote him out of the Flash movie and said, yeah, your role's not big enough. We're not going to have you in. No, that was whistleblower shit. And in effect, that's probably one of the things that killed the DCEU, is all the mismanagement. But we're talking about Marvel right now. Anyways, you saw the banter between Iron Man, Captain America, and Thor. And Whedon did the good thing of, okay, we have 3 levels of heroes. We got 2 street-level heroes, Hawkeye and Black Widow. They are street level. They are just exceedingly trained individuals with some advanced tech. Both of them are master spies and assassins. Then you got them 4 color heroes, Iron Man and Captain America. They are your typical 4 color. And then you have the cosmic level heroes. And I call Hulk a cosmic level hero because remember, technically there's no upper limit to the Hulk's strength. The angrier he gets, the stronger he gets. And there is no upper measured limit. And then of course Thor is an alien god who can call the Bifrost and control weather and, incredibly, 1,500 years of fighting experience and, the Prince of Asgard. And yeah, I mean, you had that gradation, and because you had the 2 4-color heroes with that 1 cosmic hero, they had that range of knowledge of the threats in the universe. And of course, Tony, having nightmares about the Chitauri, and that's what Wanda Maximoff played with in his head at the beginning of Age of Ultron. Tony had guilt, and that's why he made Ultron, of course, fucked up, and we got James Spader doing the wonderful performance, and I still think Ultron is out there. They could bring him back. Obviously, James Spader don't want to do it. Well, Ross Marquand was doing the voice for him in What If. You could bring him back. The guy who played the Red Skull after he went to Vormir, because Hugo Weaving didn't want to do. He doesn't want to do franchises anymore. Yeah, I don't think he's been in a movie. The last time I saw him in a movie was the archival footage from the first 3 Matrix movies for Matrix Resurrections. And, you want to come back? No, I have a scheduling conflict. No, I think he's out of acting. I think he got tired of the franchise stuff and just Hollywood in general. But, yeah, Tony, again, and you saw how the 3 of them were. You had Tony, Thor, and Steve all joking around and everything, and they're constantly busting each other's chops, and, yeah. And they were a holy trinity, and you saw the 3 of them going after Thanos there in Endgame. The past Thanos had come to modern day. And just, yeah, you saw them. They were, and it's like, are we all in agreement? Yes, good. Let's kill him properly this time. And that's when Mjolnir and Stormbringer and Thor is there with the braided beard. And, yeah. And just, yeah, you saw them all walking up, and they were a unified unit. They were tight. Well, relatively tight. They still got thrown around by Thanos. It took Steve picking up the damn hammer to, get things straight, because that was the wild card. So, yeah, you had, with those 3, you had guilt, patriotism, and cockiness, and having to be humbled. And as I said, Tony, it was guilt. His weapons were being used to kill innocents, so he stopped it. The people using his weapons, he blew them all up. And I love the scene in the village where the father and the son, and the father's getting kicked and beat, and Tony comes in, and he just pew, 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 and they got all the innocents, and just the little rockets come up, and they all drop. Then the guy's trying to call him, and he just pulls him through a wall, throws him down. He's all yours. And that man did not escape that. That terrorist, that was mob. That mob chose violence and chose wisely. It's like, wait a minute. Iron Man pulled him through a wall and threw him. He ain't getting up. Get him. So, yeah. So, yeah, you have these heroes that, and anyone who's a hero, the Punisher, His wife and family were killed by mobsters. Daredevil, raging Catholic. It's because his father had to deal with criminals and everything, and just, Matt fights for the common person. Catholic guilt comes into it. Yeah, no, Matt Murdock's always been portrayed as a very, guilty man due to his Catholicism. Hardcore Catholic. Father Lantham in the series and everything, and yeah. Luke Cage, help Harlem. Iron Fist, he's protecting Kun Lun, so he's fighting the Hand, and he'll fight other criminals along the way. Let's see, other heroes. Green Arrow, Oliver Queen, shipwrecked by criminals, left on an island, learned to survive and fight and hunt with a bow, and became damn near an assassin. Let's see, who else? Aquaman, trying to reconcile his, I'm the errant king of Atlantis, and I'm also human, raised by a lighthouse keeper, and I'm trapped between two worlds, and I'm just going to help this quiet little Norwegian village, and ends up finding his true destiny. And still, the fact that they got Jason Momoa to play and turned him basically into a bar house brawler. And you saw how he fought in Justice League, riding that demon. Whoa, yeah, he was a bare knuckle brawler, a barroom brawler. And yeah, he gained his nobility and everything in his 2 solo movies, but still, in the end, and I still love the interview. I will always love this interview. And it was made in the meme form. How do you feel about becoming Aquaman and all this? Oh, it's great. It's a dream of a lifetime. And, it's a wonderful role, and I thank Zack Snyder for it. And the interviewer asks, yeah, but can you swim? And Jason just looks at him and goes, bruh, I'm Hawaiian. If you don't know how to swim and you're in Hawaii, yeah, you fucked up. Let's see, who else? Robin. And we're talking the original one, now Nightwing. Yeah, his parents were killed, and he wanted to get the Flying Graysons. His parents were killed by Boss Zuko, and Robin wanted revenge. So when he found out that Bruce Wayne was Batman, so fine, I will train you, we will get Boss Zuko, but we will do it properly. You are not going to go and kill him, and no. We are going to have the laws such as there. We will get the evidence, and we will get Boss Zuko. And that was how Harvey Dent was done, because the acid and yeah. Let's see, who else? What other heroes and their motivations? Spider-Man, we all know. With great power comes great responsibility. He had the chance to stop the killer of his Uncle Ben. He didn't. Spider-Man hides his regret deeply. He's the cocky making, hey, why don't you, with Kingpin. What are you, full of marshmallow fluff? And, yeah. That's Spider-Man 4. I want to see Spider-Man go up against, I want to see Tom Holland go up against Vincent D'Onofrio, who slays it as the Kingpin. I mean, Michael Clark Duncan, he's a wonderful actor, but just Vincent D'Onofrio, I need to get to the girlfriends and see Echo, which I think drops tomorrow, January 9th, and it's all like 6 or 8 episodes. Echo she's deaf and she's missing part of a leg, and this woman still kicks ass. Charlie Cox will be in it, and there's a fight scene between Daredevil and Echo, I hear. So, yeah, it looks like Echo's going to be, and of course, again, D'Onofrio. Just the thinnest. And trust me, folks, I will be doing, probably next week, or if not, in the near future, Supervillain Psych 101. You have been told, warned, yeah. And I actually want to thank the roommate for that idea. What did you do with supervillains? Oh, no, supervillains all have their that will probably be a sequel down the line sometime. So for Supervillain Psych 101 coming up, thank my roommate Wolf for that idea. And you have, let's see, what other heroes? Well, we can use the rest of the Avengers. Bruce Banner. He had his issues with, an abusive father, and he wanted to try to push the boundaries of science. And a lot of scientists use themselves as test subjects, and unfortunately he did. And let out this horrifically angry alter ego. And it's been confirmed that Bruce Banner, he was abused by his dad. Now, in the Ang Lee movie Hulk with Eric Bana, Ang Lee did the two Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon movies. The one with Chow Yun-fat and Michelle Yeoh, and the Netflix sequel with Michelle Yeoh and Donnie Yen. Wonderful filmmaker. Problem is, he tried to turn a superhero movie into a psychological drama. That's why, well, Eric Bana is just bland as hell. He did okay as Nero in Star Trek '09. But Nick Nolte playing the abusive father, and so yeah, it's pretty much Bruce Wayne. It's through scientific self-experimentation brought out, basically, it's almost like a dissociative identity disorder. And, with how Professor Hulk, he managed to merge, okay, I have the brains of the Hulk, but I have the relative strength, or I have the brains of Banner, but the relative strength of Hulk. I had to sacrifice that no upper limit, but I'm still strong. And I am now, 7 foot tall green, and I have still my 7 doctorates. So for Banner, it was self-experimentation, scientific, trying to push the bounds of science. Hawkeye, trained as a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent. Black Widow, trained as a KBG agent in the Red Room with Dragov. If you saw Black Widow, you saw him. And then realizing everything she did when... That's why Barton and Nat were close friends like this. Because Barton was the one that turned her away from the KGB. Wiping that red out of the ledger. And let's see. Okay. What other heroes? DC. Let's do the rest of the Justice League. I did Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman. Aquaman, again, trying to reconcile his two halves, human and Atlantean. Flash. Yeah, Flash and Cyborg were the accidents. It's Barry in the end, of course, it gave us the Flashpoint paradox. The Flash movie that came out last year was supposed to be the Flashpoint paradox, but they couldn't get the guy who played Negan from Walking Dead to be Thomas Wayne like he was at BVS. And so they tweaked it around, tried to bring in Michael Keaton's Batman, and Flash, he just had these powers and he realized, I can do good with these. And with Cyborg, yeah, he destroyed, was nearly killed in a lab accident that took his mother Eleanor. Silas, with the mother box, cyberized him. Now, when Cyborg was made, the father was a cyberneticist and put the exoskeleton on Victor. And there was a lot of grief between Silas and Victor for a long time. Now, Victor, yeah, he realized, well, my Olympic dreams are done. Because Victor Stone, yeah, he was playing high school football and he was ready to go to college. And in the original Wolfman and Perez New Teen Titans, he was going to be in the Olympics. And then he got the suit put on him, to save his life. He's like, well, my Olympic dreams are shot. And he started, fighting crime in Hell's Kitchen. He realized, I can be a superhero. But Flash and Cyborg, and, when they were digging up Superman's body, were the accidents. Yeah, then they were. And so Flash, Barry with his very socially awkward... And this is one of the things about Barry Allen. And say what you want about Ezra Miller. Personally, as a person, it's been proven they're a shit person. And I am not slamming Ezra Miller because of the he's queer and polyamorous and I'm not slamming about that. That has nothing to do with him as a person. Ezra Miller has chosen to do shit that has repeatedly gotten them in trouble with the law. They canceled themselves out of Hollywood. Ezra Miller and with how badly The Flash bombed, Ezra Miller, he's done with acting. No studio will hire him. And also, he did a documentary, and Ezra Miller's actually a director, too. But I want to say it was about the murder of Emmett Hill, but from the viewpoint of the white racist cop that killed him. And I'm like, how do you empathize with a white... I'm hearing about this a few years back. I'm like, how in the fuck do you empathize with a white racist cop? What the hell... Miller, what the hell were you trying to do? So... But the one thing about Barry Allen, I will say this about BVS and Justice League, is that Barry, his thing was, I am now moving at super speed all the time. I have to slow down just to interact with everyone. I don't feel like I'm part of this world anymore. And there is a song by a group called Jim's Big Ego. It's called the Ballad of Barry Allen. And the whole song is about how Barry has to interact with the world. And yet I save people's lives and I'm gone before they even realize they were in danger. By the time they're back up on the bridge after falling, as I run them up the bridge and put them back safely, I'm gone. I'm 1,000 miles away and they don't even know who saved them. They might have seen a red flash. So yeah, Barry, despite his incredible speed and the Speed Force, and the Speed Force was an original thing. They came up with that in the 80s. That, no, they're not that fast. They're tapping into this extra dimensional energy which causes them to be that fast in the real world. But Barry Allen, you saw, and I give Ezra Miller credit this with how stumbly and kind of, well, you know, because talking to Bruce Wayne there in his little lair that he had, yeah, he was kind of stumbling over himself and kind of, everyone is slow. And yeah, I do this, and yeah, and he talks like this, and other times I talk real fast because he's really excited about something. I give Ezra Miller credit that he did do Barry as most of us who would know the Flash would see him. He's trying to interact with a world which is now far too slow for him. And I love Batfleck. I'll try to keep up. Yeah. What is your superpower, by the way? I'm rich. Yeah. So yeah, it's the mentality of a superhero, the very force that drives them. It could be something as early as, you know, their birth or shortly after, or it could be just something that happens in a split second, changes their life forever, or something they've trained for all their lives, or an ideal that they have. There are many factors behind what makes a superhero tick. And as I said, there's a multitude of reasons why I named both DC and Marvel's Holy Trinities, but also I brought in other heroes. And a lot of them, you know, and there's the phrase that's in the novelization of Star Wars, and I said it last week. They were in the wrong place at the wrong time, so naturally they became heroes. Barry Allen just happened to be in the crime lab there at night, and that lightning bolt hit in the chemicals and it doused him. Yeah. And then he found out he was able to tap into the Speed Force with it. And so they push themselves to realize that I've either trained or been born with these gifts or had these gifts bestowed upon me. And it's the phrase, some people are born to greatness, some people aspire to greatness, others have greatness thrust upon them. Still trying to figure that out for me, you know, it just, yeah. Looking for snark here, just give me a second. Okay. But yeah, superheroes usually fit in one of those three categories. Batman had greatness thrust upon him because of his parents' death. He had to also aspire. But in the end, it was him having his parents killed by Joe Chill in Crime Alley in Gotham City, walking home from a theater, that started him on that path. Diana, she was born to greatness. She, you know, God-infused clay. Yeah, and just... So, through training, mutation of some sort, either genetic or something in an environment. And that was the running joke about Batman. Yeah, Gotham doesn't need Look at all the criminals that have been changed by industrial accidents. Gotham City doesn't need Batman. They need better OSHA. You know. I said what I said. Think about it. All of the damn most of the damn criminals in Batman are due to some chemical mutation, some industrial accident, or something. Gotham City just needs to pay their OSHA employees better. As I would say when I said, that there looked like an OSHA violation. Yeah. Or what's the other one? Yeah, I think we just saw an OSHA manual burst into flames. But yeah, you have just this wide range of motivations that cause these people to often put on colorful garb, sometimes concealing their identity, and going out and helping people. Now, with that, yeah, you do have the other side of the coin. And thanks to my roommate over here giving me the idea, a future episode will be Supervillain Psych 101. What motivates a person to want to kill or enslave humanity? Or the biggest, dumbest trope in I want to destroy the world. Where the supervillains or the superheroes are going, no, don't do that. Most of my stuff is here. You know, it's just, yeah, supervillains, and often they are the flip sides of the coin. Look at, and I said I'll be getting more into that in a future episode. It might be next week, it might be a few weeks down the line, but I will be doing Supervillain Psych 101. So it's just, we need to have both sides of the story, as it were. But superhero psychology and mentality is something that's been a favorite subject of mine for a while, because I was raised on the DC Comics. I had to, get into what makes these people tick. Why are they going around in long underwear and, towels wrapped around their necks and, helping people and beating up bad guys? They all have their reasons. And it's funny because superheroes are our modern mythology, like I've mentioned before on the Why Play a Superhero Game episode. They are. You're going to be seeing, the whole alien archaeologists come to Earth, and they're going to be seeing these symbols of Superman, Batman, Spider-Man, Captain America. And I've got a t-shirt of all the Marvel symbols along with onomatopoeic sounds like bam, wham, crack. And those symbols are known worldwide. And now, especially because the last 20 years, we've been having these superhero movies. Well, technically, the first superhero movie was Superman 1977, 78, Christopher Reeve's first Superman film. And, the tagline, "You will believe that a man can fly." And so, the superhero psychology is just something I've always been fascinated with. And that's why I'm thinking, you know what, I'm finally doing it. We're doing it. Yep, I'm doing this episode. And I'm running through what I was going to do in my head while at work today. And so you have just these recognizable, and we worship them. We emulate them. Again, I'm repeating stuff from that previous episode, but it still needs to be said. We emulate them. There has not been a kid who has tied a red towel around his neck and wanted to be Superman jumping off of things. Problem is, you got to watch that, because that's how my grandpa lost his above ground pool. Some kid had a towel around his neck and he jumped off my grandpa's garage and pool, broke his leg. My grandpa had to get rid of the pool. By the time I got around to knowing my grandpa, I couldn't even tell a pool was there. My dad had to tell me, yeah, we had a pool. What happened? Some neighbor kid, climbed up on the garage with a red towel around his neck. Oh, he did not jump up. Yeah, he did. Grandpa had to get rid of the pool. God damn it. So, yeah, we want to emulate these people because we see them as elevated versions. We want to be these people. We want to be the best of humanity. We want to be able to say that we do things and help people and get adulation for it, adoration for it. And frankly, I think we need more of those people. Not people throwing towels around their necks and jumping off buildings or anything. But we need more heroes in this world. We don't have enough. Somewhere along the way, we've lost our way, and we need those heroes back. The people who are willing to help people, and because it's the right thing to do. Because in this society, it's no longer right or wrong. It's, can I get away with it? People will blow through yellow lights and red lights because they know ain't no cop around. Everybody's out of the way. And it's like George Carlin said, cop didn't see it, I didn't do it, I'm gone. We need more heroes. We need more people who are willing to help people just get by. And it just seems in the last 10 years, that's disappearing. I think that is why for the longest time we had all these superhero movies, and then when we were all locked down during the pandemic, we had Marvel putting out and DC putting out, on Disney Plus and on now Max, all of these superhero shows, and unfortunately that's what caused the superhero fatigue. All we did was sit and watch superhero movies because of the pandemic. We were trapped in our homes, we had nothing better to do. We want to totally escape, turn on something superhero. Oh, Loki came out. Oh, this came out. Oh, that came out. And now we're tired of them because we watch them for 3 years with nothing else to do. I think personally we should have a good 5-year break from superhero movies. DC and Marvel should just be like, okay, we're going to take a break. We're going to put out other stuff. We're going to refine our craft. We might reboot some stuff, or soft reboot. But yeah, we can tell y'all aren't buying, because a lot, it's not just like, oh, the Marvels suck. No, that's incel fanboys living in their mother's basements, yelling for more Cheetos and Mountain Dew, bitching that, oh, Brie Larson don't have no butt, she can't act. No, you're just being an incel. You're just being a sexist pig. Brie Larson, I love her as Captain Marvel. Oh, God, I'm blanking. Tayana Harris, I think, is Photon. And Iman Vellani as Miss Marvel is adorable. I loved Miss Marvel. I've yet to see the Marvels. I can watch it later if I want. But Miss Marvel, she was fantastic. And she's now writing the character for Marvel Comics. Iman Vellani's living the damn dream. I get to be in the MCU and I get to write for Marvel Comics. And she's 21. But yeah, it's superheroes. It's like Miss Marvel. Okay, we'll use her real quick because I got 10 minutes left. Miss Marvel, she adored Captain Marvel. She wanted to be a superhero, and when she got the bracelet that gave her the turning light into physical objects, because originally in the comics she was stretching. They didn't want to confuse that with Mr. Fantastic when Fantastic Four comes out in a few years for the MCU. So they gave her, okay, Jin, and oh no, she's a mutant. They said that at the end of Miss Marvel. Her buddy Bruno said, no, I did a genetics test. You have a mutation. So Miss Marvel, it's, I want to be just like Captain Marvel. And in the Marvels, they hook up, and yeah, they're now friends and everything. She's now a true superhero who's been out in space and everything. Photon, the other member of the Marvels. Yeah, she got these powers going through the hex in Westview, New Jersey, in WandaVision. She now can manipulate light. And so, because her mother was an Air Force pilot and her aunt is Captain Marvel, yeah, I'm going to kind of get into the family because she calls her Aunt Carol. She was like a sister to Maria, who sadly, Monica Rambeau was caught in the blip, came back in the snap, or lost in the snap, came back from the blip. Marie Rambeau, Lashana, blanking on her last name. She was the new Miss Moneypenny in the last Daniel Craig. She was the Miss Moneypenny in the Daniel Craig Bond movies. She died, and so came back and so my mother's gone, my Aunt Carol's gone, and I get these powers. I'm going to try to fight in her, and became Photon. So yeah, it's all sorts of, their adoration. That's many times that's often used a plot in a role-playing game with, okay, this guy found tech or the costume of this hero is now trying to become a problem is he has no skills. So he's there going, and probably my favorite superhero in the movies, that's right, Mr. Damon Wayans is Blank Man. He was a 2-bit inventor and he made things, and because his town was being, covered in corruption and everything, decides to become Blank Man. And one of my favorite scenes is Blank Man in the alley fighting the pimp and the other guys. Slap me around and call me Susan. Ah! That whole scene breaks me up. And no, I do not condone smacking women, but just the way he screamed like a 13-year-old, after getting backhanded by the pimp. I don't know what it is. I don't know why I find it funny when a grown-ass man screams like a little girl. To me, that's funny as hell. I don't know why. I can't explain it. I don't know the source of this. But just Blank Man. He did it to protect his neighborhood. Him and David Allen Greer is the other guy. You brought the nunchucks. Yeah. Let's see, what other heroes real quick? The Question, and we're going to talk about the animated Question from the DC animated universe. Yeah, he was an investigative reporter, but he also believed that there was one conspiracy theory. One big theory that covered everything. He was the ultimate conspiracy theorist. So because he was Vic Sage, investigative reporter, then he'd put the featureless mask on and become the Question. Now, something y'all may not realize, the former heroes of Charlton Comics, which included Captain Atom, Blue Beetle, The Question, a couple others, DC wanted to do a very dark storyline with them. And DC said, no, we're still under the Comic Codes Authority like in the mid-'80s. That's where you got Watchmen from. Rorschach, that's The Question. Night Owl, that's Blue Beetle. Captain Atom, that's Dr. Manhattan. I'm not trapped in here with you. You're trapped in here with me. Yeah, Jackie Earl Haley is Rorschach, yeah. Where guy's fucking with him and he just takes the fryer basket and throws it right in his face and then beats the crap out of it. Or I think hits him in the throat, and that's when the guard, and he yells as he's being carried out. But yeah, no, Rorschach was the ultimate conspiracy theorist. So he was trying to investigate it, and he fought crime. He was a martial arts investigator. That's all he was. But my two favorite scenes of that Question was he's there in a cold storage warehouse. Batman calls him, Question, this is Batman. You need to come in. We have a mission. In a minute, I'm in the middle of a case. Cracks open this round cardboard container and looks in. He goes, aha, I knew it. 32 flavors. And uses the little camera. And then the other scene, he's bound up on a table. And you have these guys with cattle prods. And they keep asking him, tell us what you know. And he's spitting out all these weird little conspiracy theories. What was the one? Tell us what you know. The plastic things on the ends of shoelaces are called aglets. Their purpose is insidious. Tell us what you know. Fluoride does nothing to strengthen your teeth. However, it does make your bones visible from spy satellites. Tell us what you know. That's the Question, right? And I mean, he was a lot more serious in the comics. He was a lot darker and everything. And he was comic relief in the DC animated universe. And then him and Huntress were put together. But still, just, yeah, that whole 32 flavors. Yeah. So, yeah, I think as far as Superhero Psych 101, you have, and of course this harkens back to, why would you want to run or play in a superhero game? Because you have to know the motivation of why that person is out there in colorful costumes or concealing costumes and beating the crap out of often mentally ill people with advanced tech and henchmen and all that. They all want to preserve humanity in whatever microcosm of society they have, or life in all of the universe. It's just they still have to have a reason why they're doing this. And that is why I did this episode tonight. Again, the psychology of the superhuman is something which has amazed me for decades. Ever since I started reading, DC Comics back in, like the late 70s. I still got my comic book collection in the storage cage downstairs in the laundry room down there. From like the very late 70s until around 91 when I stopped actively collecting. And I'd have no idea what to start. Oh, I want to start collecting it. I would have no idea what to do. I'd look for the comics I would have. They'd be long gone. I think there might be a Titans comic book. But with all the changes that DC has been through with 6 different universes in the past 10 years, yeah. Because I heard they just killed off Beast Boy, Gar Logan. They killed his character off. So yeah, I'm just like, oh great, what the? So yeah, it's. Yeah. So yeah, it just with the superhuman psyche, the superhero psyche. It's a good thing to get into if you want to play these characters. To get in a superhero game. And I want to play a Batman clone, or I want to play, a former Marine who decides to, avenge his buddy's deaths because the guy who killed him is now a drug lord in, San Diego or whatever. You have to have motivation. It's like playing any role. It's kind of like my motivation as Trav, to inform, enlighten, and entertain. If I have not done that tonight, with this episode, Uncle Trav's campaign notes in my Superhero Psych 101 class, then I failed in the past 2 hours. Now, here's the thing. And it's like Jordan Howlett. Come close, come so close. I'm going to be back tomorrow to do the same type of thing with the Travcast. inform, enlighten, entertain. Me and Jeff the Ref. Here on this Twitch channel and on DementiaRadio.org. Tomorrow nights. Okay, you're too close. Back up. Tuesday nights, 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern. Part 3 of Blind Wolves Rubber Room Association. So yes, we're going to wrap this up here. I'm going to take this here, my note card for the evening, and just pitch that over there. I think I made it. Limp by Snark. See, you bumped up against that box. That's karma for picking on me. Folks, this is your old Uncle Trav saying, gaming is just collective storytelling. Get some friends together and tell some good goddamn stories. I'll see you tomorrow night for the Travcast. Night all.